Hello and welcome to episode 270 of my podcast all about knitting and crochet and my yarn shop here in Wiesbaden, Germany. I'm Kiko and today is April 14th, 2025. And today I'm wearing two of my favorite pieces that I not only like a lot, but also wear a lot. So there are some things that I love, but I still don't wear them all that often. But then there are a few things that I feel like I'm wearing all the time. And this little shawlette is quite old. So the Ravelry page was created in 2012, but it was back in those times when I didn't put a date when I actually knit the things. So I think I knitted before 2012. I think it still looks quite nice. It's knit out of a Regia sock yarn, which I think is not very suitable for socks because for socks it doesn't hold up very well. But for a shawl, it's perfect because it has really nice colors. The series was called Hand Dye Effect. It wasn't really hand dyed, but it was supposed to look as if it was hand dyed. And it's a fairly softly spun yarn, I think is what you could say. And therefore, I don't think it's very suitable for socks, even though it's called sock yarn. But I really like it for shawls. And I did not knit the whole shawl, but my sister knit the first part. That was sort of boring. And also in that first part, the pattern says to put in beads wherever you like. And I'm not very good with wherever you like. I like to have a plan of how to do things. And also my sister, she doesn't mind just adding things randomly. So she put in these tiny little beads just randomly, and you can only see them if you look for them or if the light hits them the right way. And then I was supposed to do the lace edging, and the plan was that she would do two of those garter stitch bits and I would do the lace edging on both. But then once I started my lace edging and she finished her garter stitch part, she decided to do it herself, which I think is fantastic. And I'm really happy she did that. I don't think she still has the shawl. She tends to give a lot of things away. But I think it's one of the first pieces where she knit it from a chart and she realized it's really not that difficult. And now she's a lot more confident in knitting from charts. But when I started knitting the pattern, I think the first row with beads, I put in the same size beads that she used, but I found it so difficult because they're so tiny and it was really hard work to pour the yarn through that I decided to use bigger beads. So the beads have the same colors, the ones in the edge and the ones in the shawl, but they are a size bigger. So I think she used like 3mm beads and I used 4mm beads. And and the pattern is called Celaeno and it was designed by Romy Hill and it's part of her first ebook of 7 small shawls. And I came across this pattern or this ebook, I think before she had released all the patterns in the ebook, and I think the whole book was a bit cheaper because of that. And I think it's the very first ebook of knitting patterns that I ever bought. And back when internet was still fairly new and I didn't really know how things worked, but I was so happy with those patterns that I kept buying her small ebooks with one skein shawls. Except for one where she collaborated with an US yarn dyer, and I knew I wouldn't be able to afford that yarn, so I didn't buy that one. But I do own a lot of patterns by Romy because I really love the way she designs. Yeah, so and the last time I wore this shawlette on the video is a long time ago because I keep thinking, oh, I'm not wearing it this time because I may save it for something where I can't combine anything else because it feels like this color, because it's fairly dark and because of the colors that are in there, this goes with almost everything I have. But I thought it was time to bring it back onto the video. So, and I like the combination with this cardigan. So yeah, that's why I'm wearing it today. And the cardigan was, I think, part of my favorite pullovers and cardigans video that I did not too long ago. I think I did it before I went on holiday. But I thought I could also wear it for a whole episode. It's knit out of the six ply sock yarn by Opal. And the pattern is from this book by Daniel Juhas. The English version is Knitting from the Center Out, I think. And in the book, the cardigan starts with the hood. So this is what the original looks like. Fewer colors than my cardigan. And you're supposed to start with the hood. So this is what it looks like in the original, but you can see that my hood looks differently. And that's, at first I knit the hood the way it's written in the book. And then I started knitting the cardigan, and a friend of mine was knitting along. And we both realized we didn't like the way the hood was knit. And then she decided to knit another cardigan, and I told her how to do a different hood. And then I liked that one so much that I actually cut off the original hood on this cardigan and knit this one, which is just like a very simple rectangle. And I just kept those purl stitches to make it work together better, and I did the same edge stitches, and then just for fun I put a glass bead and a tassel, and I'm really happy with this hood now. I don't really wear it a lot, but if I want to wear it, this is a lot more practical than the original in the book. And I actually did a video on how I cut this off and started the new one, I think, something like that. And the other fun thing about this pattern is that it has pockets that you knit at the same time as the front of the cardigan. So you don't need an extra ball of yarn. You just use the same yarn, and because of the way you knit and pick up stitches, you get a pocket that is knit at the same time. I think that's very clever and very interesting. And if you do everything right, you get a perfect pocket that's already attached and everything. If you get it wrong, you can end up with a strand of yarn that goes from the pocket to the front of the cardigan. So this is what happens if you don't pay attention and get a stitch wrong. By the time I noticed it, I'd already knit so much that I didn't want to go back. And I keep thinking of sewing something on top of this strand of yarn, maybe a little button or something, just to hold it tight so it won't get even longer than it already is. But I keep forgetting to do that. And if I'm careful in putting my hand in or putting a tissue in or something, nothing bad happens. So that's okay. Yeah, so that's what I'm wearing today. And then on to finished projects. I have one finished project and only one new cast on this week. So I'm quite happy with myself. And the finished project, of course, are the Round 3 Sock Madness socks. The pattern is Itamaraty by Anna Zuravleva. And I used some drops sock yarn that I had lying around at home. And I'm really happy with how they turned out. It's a beautiful pattern. It has some very interesting shaping on the sole of the foot. So these are the gusset decreases, the normal decreases, but then she adds more decreases here to form this beautiful triangle. And to make up for these decreases, you have some increases in the sole of the sock, which makes a very interesting line here. And yeah, so I think it's a really clever pattern. Knitting the minimum requirement for the sock makes them too big for me, but I have a recipient in mind who they should fit perfectly, and I know she likes the same colors that I like, so that should work out well. And I use these straight sock blockers that I was given as a gift by Marienbär to take the photographs, the official photographs for the Sock Madness. And I'm using it now to show the front of the sock so you can see the whole pattern, because I think this is really, really beautiful. And this is the bit where you can change the size. I think for me, I would have only needed a few rounds, but because of the rule that everybody has to knit the same amount of rounds, which makes sense for the competition to be fair, They just got too big for me. And this is what the sole of the sock looks like. So you can see these are the increases that make up for the decreases here. The heel flap is quite fun that these twisted stitches are continued by, these are twisted stitches and these are slip stitches, but it looks as if the lines were just continuing seamlessly. And yeah, very nice socks. I'm very happy I finished in time to get a spot for round 4, which I think will start sometime after Easter. So round 3 finishes this Thursday, and then we'll see how the sock madness progresses. So that was my finished object. Then on to works in progress. And the first one is the little mystery gnome by Sarah Shearer. I'm going to knit this as my April gnome for the Year of Gnomes. And the pattern is called Professor Fungi. After I watched one of her videos, I realized it's fungi. It's not fungi. In German, we say fungi. And I do think in Italian they say fungi, but in English it's fungi. So Professor Fungi. I finished all the clues that we have so far. I'm going to start showing them now. So this was part of clue 1 I already showed you last week, and I think I had that finished last week, and also this. And then another part of clue 1 was this mysterious thing that might go with this one. And then we have 2 of these. They probably go somewhere here. And then also this one. And then clue 2 started off what I think is the body of the gnome, and it started here. And then the next clue I think had the color work pattern. It's not very obvious because there isn't a big contrast with the 2 colors. And then the last clue had some shaping. So this, you can see some shaping here. So this looks like this. And the next step that we're supposed to do is block the body. I don't usually block the gnomes that I knit. I sometimes block the hats if there's something special about them. But this time I'm going to block this. And I wanted to do that over the weekend, but I forgot to take it home. So I'll try and do that today. I think the next clue comes out on Wednesday. So if I block it today, it should be dry by Wednesday so I can continue knitting. Very interested in how this is going to come together and how it goes on. So that's the first project. Then we come straight to the shawl I'm knitting. I only have one shawl today, and that's the Opal Stole by Deb Milstein that I'm test knitting. And last week I showed you the beginning and the 6 stripes that I knit during the holidays, and then I added 4 more stripes. So the colors are now going, I had several colors with yellow, now I'm more into the red range. I looked at the next colors that I had planned for the stole, but it seems every time I get out some more colors, I also change a few colors. So now the next one is supposed to be this really red and blue color, and then more of a muted mix, and then these are the other colors that I have planned so far. After this one, it'll be even more gray, and then from there, I think it'll go into purple and pink, and then into the blues and turquoises. So I think with this ball, I hadn't realized how much turquoise there was in the middle. But that's okay. I didn't have to have it completely planned out. And I really enjoy the knitting on this. I'm looking forward to reaching the half point, 3 more color stripes, and I have the half point, and I have to finish the second half. One of my friends, when she saw the shawl, said, oh, that would make a nice pullover. So I thought she was quite right there. So if I hold it like this would make a really nice stripy pullover. If I was knitting this as a pullover, I'd probably knit it in the round until the armhole and then separate it for the front and back. And then you could decide if either just simple black sleeves, or you could do stripy sleeves. So I really like that idea as well. So this is going to be a really versatile pattern. I think Deb herself is knitting on a scarf version. So that's another possibility. If you cast on fewer stitches, you could knit a scarf. If you cast on a few more stitches, you could even make a blanket. Yeah, have a lot of fun with this. Enjoy knitting that very much. And that brings me already to the garments I'm knitting. And the oldest of those is the Advent calendar garment that I'm knitting. And there are two more like mini balls of yarn lying around. This is the color I'm using at the moment. This is going to be the next color. And last time I showed it to you, I was still knitting on this color. And this is the new color that I've added. And this ball of yarn will go completely into the shoulder, and this will then be the color that where I transition from the front and back into the sleeve. So here it's this gray color that's partly in the sleeve and partly in the front and back, and I will again sew the stitches for the front and back together with this neon yellow, and then at some point I will cast off with this neon color just for fun. And yeah, this is what the pullover looks like right now. This is the neckline. So I have the same color before and after the neckline, but otherwise the colors are rather different. And I'm already looking forward to seeing how the second sleeve is going to look. Yeah, so very exciting. The next garment I have on my needle, I didn't show last week because I did knit on it during the holiday. It's the vest. It's a pattern by Tin Can Knits. It's called Vest Friends, and I'm knitting that as part of the pattern battle in the Opal Abo group. So with the Opal subscription, we get 6 different colors 4 times a year, and one of the colors is always chosen for the pattern battle, and then everybody taking part knits the same color but a different pattern. And because I was able to swap one of the balls for a second one in this color, I decided to knit a vest. And the vest by Tin Can Knit starts with the top back of the vest, then you pick up stitches and you knit the 2 fronts, and then when you finish the length for the armhole and you finish the increases for the armhole, you cast on a few stitches in between. And now I'm knitting the front and back downwards in one go. And I was quite surprised that for this upper bit of the vest, I used about 50 grams, maybe a little more. So it's not a lot at all, and it looks tiny, but that's because it's rolling like crazy. So if I unroll my my knitting, it's not that tiny. And once I finish the front and back, or finish the 100 grams, whatever comes first, I will pick up stitches around the armhole to knit some sort of edging inside. And then once I have the finished length, I will pick up stitches up the fronts and in the neck, and then down the other front, and also at the bottom of the vest, and knit some edging there. And the original pattern has, you knit these edgings in stockinette stitch, so you get a rolled edge, but I'm not a big fan of that. So I will probably either do some garter stitch or a 1x1 rib. Haven't really decided yet what I want to do, but these are the 2 options that I'm thinking about at the moment. And yeah, I'm really surprised I'm using that little yarn, and should be interesting to see how far I get with my first 100 grams and how much of the second ball I'm actually going to use, because I don't want it too long, because I don't think with that kind of design, I don't think it really works if it's too long. So yeah, we'll see. That's that. And then the next garment is the Multitalent summer pullover or t-shirt by Nicolor that I started just before I went on holiday. And I have another 200 gram project. I had 200 grams of sock yarn with some bamboo in it. So it's a mix of wool, bamboo, and nylon. And I've almost finished my first 100 grams. And I have finished the yoke of the pullover. And so I've put the sleeve stitches on hold, and I'm continuing with the front and back. And the design is written in such a way that the increase lines that ran down the front and back for the yoke, they are continued, but in order to not have a big A-line or knit a dress or something, there are decreases underneath the arms so that the stitch number remains the same after every 4 rounds. And yeah, so my plan is to knit those last 10 or 15 grams that I have, and once I've done that, I will pick up stitches around the neck to do the neck ribbing or edging or whatever, and then I will pick up the stitches for the sleeves and knit some short sleeves, not tiny. I won't do the ribbing straight away. I'll probably knit a bit in stockinette and then do some sort of ribbing, and I'll do that on both sides. And once everything up here is finished, then I'll use the rest of the yarn to knit downwards. And with this one, I don't really know what length I want, and I think it's wide enough to knit as long as the yarn goes. So I might just knit the whole yarn that I have, but I don't know. And I won't decide until I get there, and I'll keep trying it on the way I like doing, and then we'll see what happens with that. So that's all the garments I wanted to show you today. That brings me to the blanket that I worked on. So I did some crocheting, and again, I have only a little yarn left that I'm using at the moment. So I will definitely have to start a new ball in the neon green to finish this crochet blanket. So this blanket started off as little squares crocheted out of 10-gram minis. Then I added some leftover yarn, and the only thing that all the yarns have in common is that there's some green in that ball of yarn. And then I decided to attach all the squares with the neon green. And then after a while, I decided I need more squares now, and I didn't have that many minis and leftovers anymore. So I decided to use a full ball of yarn with green in it. And because I had 100 grams, I decided to crochet one big square and place it in between the little ones. And I showed you last time how I am crocheting the squares together in one go. It's no problem when all the squares are the same size, and even with a bigger one, it shouldn't be a problem. And I think there are two, I think this side, no, that's the one with the problem. So this side worked out perfectly, and this side worked out perfectly, but here I got something wrong, and I had to fix it on the go. So you can see that this cluster is a bit mixed up and not quite the way it should be, and this gap is a bit too big, but it's a blanket, it doesn't matter. And I just fixed it the best I could while I was going. And I hope that on this side, it'll be no problem the way it was here and here. So there are 2 more rows of squares that I need to attach. I've finished all the squares. I've already shown them to you at some point. And I left them at home because I've put them in the order that I want to add them here. So I didn't want to mix them up again. So that's the next step, is just to pick up the loop, attach the next squares, and then the next row, and then the blanket will be finished. So this is the width of the blanket, as it is will stay, so that'll be the finished width, and the length is this much at the moment, and there'll be 2 more squares added. And so it's not a huge blanket, it's a fairly small blanket, but it's okay. They don't always have to be huge. I have several blankets that are quite big, so it's okay to have some that are a bit smaller. And then we'll see how big the next blanket is going to be. It's already planned, but I haven't started yet. So that was the crochet I did last week, and that gets me to the socks that we do in the knit-alongs that I'm running this year. So the plan for this year was to film a tutorial video for a sock every month, and then during that month knit the same pattern in a grown-up size. So I finished the socks for January and February. The March pattern was the Estonian spiral pattern. And this is the color I'm using. It's another Opal Abo colorway. I'm using that for the grown-up socks, and I finished the first one. This is the second one. And because the pattern tends to pull in slightly, I started with 6 more stitches than I usually use. And I started with a 3mm needle. And after 30 rounds, I changed to the 2.75mm needle. That's the needle I'm going to use for the rest of the sock. And once I finish the pattern, I will decrease 6 stitches so that I have the normal 60 stitches that I use for socks. And yeah, and then the foot will be very simple stockinette. So that was the March pattern. The April pattern is a helix stripe pattern. I've released the video on the German channel, but I haven't done the translation yet. So I hope to get that done very soon, and I hope to have the English video ready by Thursday. And for the grown-up version, I was looking for colorways, and I decided on 2 colors out of the same series by Opal. It's the latest colorway that they came out with, and the series is called Aquarell. And the colors are very beautiful and rather light. So these are the 2 colors that I decided to use for my socks, thinking that they have no overlap. This is one of the few colors that doesn't have white in it, so I thought it should go nicely with the white and blue in this colorway. I'll quickly show you the other colorways before I show you my sock. So this is a colorway that was in the Abo last year, and I knit a baby sized flax pullover out of flax light out of that colorway. And the other colorway that was in the Abo box, that was this one, which is with the yellow and green, not quite my favorite colors, but they still look really nice, and it sold really well in my shop. So these are 2 of the colors. Then there's this color with purple and green, and here it almost looks like it's white, but it's a very, very pale green, which I think is a really nice combination. And then there's this color that I love a lot. So this is with blue and white and turquoise. And here again, the white is not really a white, but a very, very pale blue or turquoise. And then the last 2 colors are these 2. So there's a lot of pink, blue, and green in this series, but I think these 2 colors are also very, very nice. So this is just those pink and pale pink and almost white colors, and then the same pale pink but with some blue mixed in with it. So very nice series that I've been selling really well, but I hadn't knit anything myself yet, so I decided to try and mix those 2 colors, and I was really interested to see how that would come out. And I decided the blue and white was going to be my main color, so I did the ribbing just in the blue and white, and then I added the other ball of yarn, and it looks quite different from what I imagined. I hadn't realized that the pale pink and the white have almost no contrast, so you can hardly see any stripes here. Then I hadn't realized there was actually some white in the pink ball of yarn. So here are several rows of white coming on top of each other. But then there are the bits where you have the dark blue or the dark pink, and that's where you can actually see the stripes. Because with the helix method, you change color every round, but you don't cross the yarns. You don't really have a beginning or end of round. So on the inside, it's all, you can't see any beginning or end. And that's what makes this helix method so nice. And yeah, I explain all about that in the video. And then for this sock, I decided to knit a heel flap and gusset heel just to change things up a little bit. And I started knitting the heel flap in the blue and white yarn. And yeah, I'm already looking forward to seeing how the foot of the sock is going to be, which colors will come next to which colors. So yeah, different from what I expected, but I still like it. And I'm still going to finish the sock this way, or both socks. And yeah, really enjoying that. And then I also start knit the first sock for the May pattern. So in May, I decided to knit a pair of socks with some granny squares in the leg. So there are several patterns out on Ravelry where you have crochet squares in the leg of the sock, and I did that many years ago when I was still working at Wollerödels, and that was sort of the motivation or the inspiration to do this sock. And back then I crocheted 4 squares in next to each other and then knit the sock. But this time I decided to do 3 squares. So for the baby sock, I had to do 3 smaller squares to have the right circumference. And for the grown-up socks, the squares will be bigger because I need a wider circumference. So they will also be higher. So the leg will be a bit bigger than with the other socks that I made. But this is the first baby sock that I knit. I picked this Opal 100 Wasser colorway because it's so bright and colorful. And then I tried to find colors, solid colors that sort of are the same colors as in the sock. And then I crocheted those three granny squares. I crocheted them together during the last round. So I'm going to show how to do that. And then I'm going to show how to pick up stitches out of the granny squares. And then just knit a simple sock. I won't do that in front of the camera. I think there'll be enough to show with the granny squares. And yeah, so I'll do the second baby sock in front of the camera. And then in May, I'll do a grown-up version of that pattern. Yeah, so that's everything that I knit and crocheted last week. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!